Good day, everyone. Welcome to Real Conservative Headline News. I'm your host, Nathaniel Rajkumar. Starting off locally here in Trinidad and Tobago, a political scientist reviewing Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar's remarks in St. Kitts and Nevis said a message amounts to a clear call for reform within CARICOM, urging greater accountability and responsiveness from the regional body. He added that the conversation is long overdue. He, of course, is 100% correct. And I applaud Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar for taking a strong stand, being bolder than any of the other leaders, including Irfan Ali, and I admire Irfan Ali a whole lot. But when it pertains to her stand and her boldness to stand with America, our greatest democratic ally, she's definitely the greatest leader in our region, in spite of the errors she's making locally here when it pertains to taxes and fees and fines. Don't go anywhere. More local, regional, and international news up next. The Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago wishes to advise the public that no decision has been made regarding the continued issuance and subsequent demonetization of the 5-cent coin. This is, however, under consideration as a cost-saving initiative for the country, given that the cost to produce the 5-cent coin costs approximately 24 cents each. So it's 5 cents, it's 24 cents to make it. This is similar to the experience with the 1-cent coin, which at the time the bank stopped issuing it in 2017 was costing 21 cents each to produce. People don't really use those coins anymore. If a decision is taken to stop issuing and subsequently to demonetize the 5-cent coin, the public will be notified well ahead of time via the bank's official communication channels. A proud moment in our nation's economic journey. That's how Minister of Finance Nathaniel described Trinidad and Tobago's recent removal from the European Union's list of non-cooperative jurisdictions for tax purposes, and he's definitely 100% correct. That will definitely encourage foreign companies and so forth to invest in our nation. Nevertheless, Madam Prime Minister, Tanku, because of all these different increases in duties and fines and fees and taxes, he needs to be removed from his position. Place him somewhere else in some other ministry and maybe at a junior position. Regional news up next.
Delisting strengthens Trinidad and Tobago's international standing and provides a more stable platform for business expansion, cross-border partnerships, and long-term economic growth. Decisive governance matters. When reforms are pursued with urgency, seriousness, and discipline, results follow.
Minister Tanku criticized the former administration, saying their failure to address key financial reforms left Trinidad and Tobago blacklisted for nearly a decade. He emphasized that being placed on the EU list carried significant consequences.
It hurt investor confidence. It made financial transactions with European unions and European institutions by business and financial institutions more difficult and costly. It increased due diligence requirements for domestic financial sector. It exposed us as a country to the risk of defensive measures by EU member states, and it damaged this country's international reputation.
Director of Culture Maxine Brown in St. Vincent and the Grenadines says the annual Gospel Festival continues to live up to expectations as she delivered remarks at the media launch of this year's event at the Peace Memorial Hall yesterday. Brown emphasized that the organizing committee of the Gospel Festival remains committed to preserving the nation's cultural and spiritual heritage. She noted that Gospel Fest not only showcases musical talent, but also provides a meaningful platform where Christians can be exposed to the word and celebrate their faith openly. Brown said the festival has grown steadily over the years, attracting a wide cross-section of patrons and performers, while maintaining its core mission of ministry through music. According to Brown, the event continues to serve as a unifying force, bringing together churches, communities, and families in an atmosphere of worship and fellowship. It appears to me that St. Vincent and the Grenadines isn't as secular as Trinidad and Tobago, and Christians boldly declare their faith on that island far more And here in Trinidad and Tobago, the way we used to in the past, we used to be sounding a whole lot more like St. Vincent and the Grenadines in the past.
Gospel Fest continues to live up to its expectations, and year after year, this hard-working committee continues to do its part to ensure that the heritage is kept alive through the arts. And I think for their hard work, for investing their time, their talent, their treasure, yours and mine, all, they must be commended. At this time, I ask you to give a big, rousing round of applause to the committee. We see your work, we see your efforts, and we appreciate you. Equally so, the role of the Department of Culture in the Ministry of Youth, Sports, Culture, and Creative Industries is to not only invest our money to ensure that this festival lives on, but we seek to provide an avenue through which your Christian talents could be exposed and showcased to the world. After all, God has been good to us, and we must be exceptionally good to Him.
Century Aluminum in Jamaica pumped US $34 million into capital upgrades at its majority-owned Jamalco Alumina refinery, racing to sever the operation's dependence on the island's power grid after Hurricane Melissa exposed the cost of the vulnerability last year. Concurrently, Hurricane Melissa cost Jamalco owners 50% more than Hurricane Beryl just a year earlier. In some other news from Jamaica, construction of a new Belfield police station in St. Mary is set to move forward, with design work expected to be completed by the end of February. It will pave the way for the long-awaited replacement of the old, deteriorating facility. When I saw that picture of that police station, I was like, I don't think there's even any police station here in Trinidad and Tobago that looks so old and dilapidated. I mean, we used to have it up to probably like the late 90s and so forth, but wow, begs the question, what has really been taking place in Jamaica for these past few decades? Because, I mean, even under the PNM, we didn't have police stations looking like that, at least not for the past few decades. But of course, we have to remember one thing though, is under Pandey, I believe, a lot of new police stations were built here in Trinidad and Tobago, not under the PNM. Former leader of the opposition in Barbados, Bishop Joseph Atherley, has defended his decision to leave the government backbench to become the sole opposition voice in the House of Assembly in 2018, describing it as a move to protect democratic accountability in Barbados, not an act of disloyalty to the Barbados Labour Party, BLP. Nevertheless, whatever your motive was, it is just not right. It's not ethical to just cross over people. At the end of the day, that's probably why you should have decided not to go up as a candidate for the political party. Yeah, you want to preserve democracy by having an opposition, but you don't go about doing it that way, sir. Defense Force officials say they have been unable to determine the origin of a widely circulated video showing what appears to be Bahamian fishermen physically assaulting suspected illegal poachers. Commodore Floyd Moxie said the timeline surrounding the video's release remains unclear, but officers are working swiftly to establish when and where the incident occurred and the full circumstances involved. But wouldn't that be self-defense, basically? But anyhow, he also urged Bahamian fishermen not to confront suspected poachers, and rightfully so, because, I mean, these individuals could be armed and dangerous. Instead, encouraging them to report such activity directly to the Royal Bahamas Defense Force.
I spoke to members of the Fishing Alliance who sent us that video. They were unable to confirm the origin of that video or whether it was a Bahamian crew. And so we're still working through that. We're still trying to investigate if they were Bahamians. So I think I have to leave it at that until I get all the facts.
Would you encourage Bahamian fishermen to confront poachers in such a way?
Oh, no. I'd admonish Bahamian fishermen, and I came from a fishing family in Mangrove Key, not to engage foreign fishermen not to engage poachers. They are to call the Royal Bahamas Defense Force. We have the WhatsApp number out there. The majority of those boats now have a communication device that they can reach us. We expect them to call us. We look at them as being a force multiplier. They have been giving us the information.
Guyana's President Dr. Irfan Ali held bilateral discussions yesterday with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio on the sidelines of the CARICOM Heads of Government Conference in St. Kitts and Nevis. The president also has been invited to meet with the U.S. President Donald Trump in Florida on March the 7th, 2026, along with our Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar. The discussions, the only two leaders in the entire Caribbean, the discussions are expected to focus on regional security challenges affecting the Caribbean and Guyana's territorial integrity in light of threats from neighboring Venezuela. And that's what the whole of the CARICOM community, excepting Trinidad, has been ignoring. That Maduro and the Maduro regime has been attempting to annex the entire Essequibo region in Guyana for many years now, while Guyana's friends and neighbors in CARICOM remain silent. International news now. Canada announced Wednesday it is sending 8 million Canadian dollars in food aid to people in Cuba as the island faces an escalating fuel crisis as oil shipments have slowed following U.S. threats of tariffs. Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand said she did not discuss Canada's aid intentions with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio or any other U.S. officials. This is Canadian foreign policy, she said. We are focused on the humanitarian situation. The funding will be delivered through United Nations agencies instead of through the Cuban government, and therefore they are making a wise decision in Canada, even though they're being governed right now by a leftist, far left leaning regime government. Making a wise decision. Don't end up making any more negative sorts of decisions that will affect your relationship with the United States of America. But you still can be able to be a brother's keeper by sending humanitarian aid to the individuals, the Cubans on their island. Mexico has also sent a second humanitarian aid package for Cuba as the island faces a tightened U.S. embargo and threats of tariffs against countries providing it with oil. Two Mexican Navy vessels carrying 1,193 tons of supplies departed the Gulf of Mexico port of Veracruz on Tuesday. The Mexican Foreign Ministry announced the shipment is expected to arrive on Saturday. Now that is wonderful, as I said before. The Cuban people, the citizens of that nation, shouldn't have to suffer the consequences for the actions of their communist leaders. And I do not agree with all these blockades that are and sanctions that the Trump administration continues to use, that whether the Democrats or the Republicans have been using for decades now, because it is unsuccessful. They have not been able to remove the Castro party, the Communist Party from office in spite of all this diplomatic pressure. And that is why the Trump administration should do the right thing, just like what they did in Venezuela, and that is just like what they should do in Iran. And they haven't fully done it in Venezuela either yet. They need to finish the job in Venezuela and in Iran. They need to restore democracy in Cuba so that diplomacy can be restored. Diplomatic ties with America and the entire world will be able, the entire free world will be able to be restored. And therefore Cubans can prosper again and live in a free country. Now for the interesting facts segment, modern diagnostic ultrasound took shape in the 1950s through the pioneering work of Dr. Ian Donald at the University of Glasgow. A lot of the modern technology started way back when it basically had no kind of technology to talk about. In 1958, he and his colleagues published one of the first clinical studies demonstrating that high-frequency sound waves could safely create images of a fetus inside of the womb. The technology was built on earlier World War II sonar research, which used sound waves to detect objects underwater. By the 1960s, ultrasound became widely adopted in obstetrics, transforming prenatal care and medical imaging worldwide, and it's definitely benefiting the entire world nowadays. Closing off now with a travel segment. Known as Heaven on Earth, Guangzhou is one of China's most celebrated travel destinations, blending over 2,000 years of imperial history with serene natural landscapes and a cutting-edge modern economy. In 2026, the city remains a premier hub for city walks, cultural immersion, and high-tech innovation. One of the places that is well known is West Lake Shihu. This UNESCO World Heritage Site is the city's soul. Key experiences include walking the willow-lined Soo and Bay causeways, visiting the Broken Bridge, and taking a boat to 3 pools mirroring the moon. It sounds like a beautiful place that I will definitely love to visit in the future. Folks, that brings us to the end of today's headline news. Thanks again to everyone who continues to support my content. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Stay blessed and stay safe most of all. In Jesus' name.